Welcome back to Self-Love Ignited. Today we are talking about stress eating. This is a topic close to my own heart because it is something that I have definitely dealt with throughout pretty much my entire life. And I know that I am not alone. Whether you find yourself stress eating because of COVID lockdown, whether you find yourself stress eating because of other stressful events in life, it's all good. It's all good. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and what you should do instead. My name is Katie Allen, and this is Self-Love Ignited. Let's get to it. Stress eating. Let's dive in. This is a really important topic. Like I said in the intro, this affects so many of us, myself included. A lot of people have always eaten because of stress, but recently, well, I say recently, really since COVID began in early 2020, this has skyrocketed. People are going through lockdowns. Some people are going through multiple lockdowns where they're at home for weeks at a time, not able to go out. And you know what? It's stressful and it sucks. And I wanted to do this episode because I recently had a coaching call with a wonderful client who came to me with this question. I'm in lockdown. I'm really stressed out. I feel like I'm juggling a million things, and I find myself reaching for snacks, reaching for things that I know are going to make me physically feel not very good. I know that they're not good for me, but I can't stop, and I don't really know what to do instead. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to deal with this. And I think first off, and if you know me or if you've listened to this podcast, this would come as no surprise to you. Number one is, to some degree, we have got to allow this. To some degree, we have got to accept that stress is happening, that stuff is not normal, and that it is not the end of the world. Because when we find ourselves in this situation where we are super, super, super stressed out, where we are eating everything, whether you're eating a lot of things or whether you are just eating certain foods that you know are not great for you, it is really easy to fall into this trap of beating yourself up, right? Like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why am I eating whole chocolate bars at a time? Why am I eating all this fried food? Why am I eating all these cookies and candy and these really sugary things when I know that they're going to make me feel bloated and give me a headache? Why am I doing this? Ugh. So first off, have compassion for yourself, right? Give yourself grace. Give yourself space to allow this, because when we are reaching for food, when we are stress eating, the vast majority of the time, we are seeking a feeling. We are seeking a feeling. And in my experience, especially, we're just going to talk about COVID because that is sort of what's happening right now. That is the current state of the world. When we are seeking something through food, quite often it is because we are so stressed out and overwhelmed, and the world is a really scary place, and food is comfort, and food is safety, and food is security, and food is love. And we are seeking the feelings, and we think we are going to get them through food. And you know what? To a certain extent, you're right. And that might be surprising. That might not be what you expected to hear on this episode, but to a certain extent, you're right. When we eat certain foods, they trigger the pleasure centers in our brain, right? The pleasure chemicals fire in our brain. So if you've been really stressed out, if you've been overwhelmed, and you eat that chocolate or you eat that candy or you eat that whatever your thing is, you are going to have pleasure chemicals firing, right? So your body is literally seeking an escape from stress and an entrance into pleasure. So food is actually doing its job. That is exactly what it's doing. The other thing that food is, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but food is connection, right? Food is not just calories in, calories out. It's not just your macros. It's not just that. Food is culture. Food is families. Food is how people have always shown each other love. Food is how we have supported each other. It is how we have taught each other. It is how parents and children have bonded. It is how members of a community have bonded and come together. It is normal, especially when you're in lockdown and you are physically separated from so many members of your community, even if it's just the guy down at the local coffee shop who you used to see every day. If you are literally not seeing people, if you are not connecting with people like you used to, which, let's face it, most of us are not, right? Life is really not normal for most people in the world right now. It is totally normal that you are seeking that feeling of love, that feeling of connection, that feeling of community through food. So this is really why I want to encourage you to give yourself grace, be understanding, be compassionate. And one thing that I really want to encourage you to do is ask yourself, when I am reaching for X food, when I'm reaching for that chocolate, when I'm reaching for that bag of chips, when I'm reaching for that thing that I don't particularly want to be reaching for, but I keep doing it and I can't seem to stop myself, what is the feeling you're seeking? Ask yourself that question. What do I want to feel, or what do I not want to feel when I am reaching for this food? And I would bet that it is going to be some form of love, safety, connection, belonging, right? It is some form of that, quite possibly all of them, right? You might be looking for an escape from stress, but that is also safety, right? Because when we're not stressed, we're calm, and calm is a safe place to be. So ask yourself that question. And then whatever the answer is, whatever words, whatever feelings it is that you are seeking, ask yourself, what else in my life brings me closer to this feeling? What else in my life brings me closer to this feeling? Right? So again, if we just use the example of sort of love and connection, what else in my life brings me closer to feeling loved and connected? And a few examples of this might be something like joining a women's circle, right? Where you are actually, whether it's in person or online, depending on where you are and what's available to you, actually connecting with somebody. Maybe it's not even a women's circle. Maybe it's just a one-on-one, right? Maybe it's getting a therapist or a counselor or a coach or one person who you very intentionally connect with once a week or once every 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's meditation, right? Connecting with yourself, tuning in, tuning the world out, tuning into you. Maybe it is connecting with the world around you. So maybe that's spending time in nature, right? If it's available to you, again, maybe that's going down to your local park or your local green space, putting your feet on the earth, looking at the water. Maybe you have the ocean or a lake or a river. Maybe it's looking at the birds around you, looking at the trees, right? So maybe it's connecting to nature. Maybe if that's not available, if you are in a lockdown where you're maybe not able to really leave the house very often, or if you live in a city or you don't have access to a lot of green space, maybe you bring nature to you. So maybe it is getting a house plant, right? And connecting to nature in that way and physically putting your fingers in the dirt. I've actually read studies that show that even just having your skin in contact with dirt gives you pleasure chemical releases in your brain. It's fascinating how our bodies work, right? But connecting to Mother Earth. Maybe it's even something like connecting to an essential oil. I just happen to have this one sitting on my desk because I put my diffuser on right before I started recording. Maybe it's using essential oils, which come from nature, right? They are pure oils that come from plants. Maybe it is finding some that just feel amazing, diffusing them in your environment. Maybe you have a roll-on and you roll it onto your skin every day and you infuse those amazing feelings of love and connection into that oil, into that smell. It's an incredible tool. Maybe it is connecting with other people. Maybe you have your family you're living with, maybe you have a roommate, maybe you have a cat or a dog, right? But finding ways that you can feel connected and you can cultivate that feeling of love that don't necessarily have to do with food. And you can also use food. Okay, you can use food. And this is what I mean by that. When you are seeking that love and that connection and that safety in food, food is a beautiful tool for that. So why don't we use it in a positive, health promoting way? What I mean by that is if, for example, you are feeling disconnected from your family, maybe it's your parents, your family of birth, maybe you like myself, maybe you live in a different country than your family and you miss back home. You miss some of those things. What if you got recipes? What if you found foods that gave you that nostalgic feeling? For example, I'll use a personal example for me. My mom passed away when I was 20 years old. I was 14 years ago now. And my sister, who lives in Canada, I'm in Australia. My sister, who lives in Canada, actually has some of her recipes, her handwritten recipes, things that she used to make for myself and my sister when we were little kids. So every once in a while, I'll contact my sister and say, ask for a recipe and actually make something that my mom used to make for us that is delicious, that is healthy, and that gives me that feeling of love and connection and gives me that safety that I'm seeking, right? Food is not something to be feared or run away from. We can use food as a beautiful tool of connection. So perhaps it is making a recipe that reminds you of a time when you felt connected, a time when you felt safe. Maybe it's doing a recipe swap with a bunch of friends or with other family members, and then you all connect over Zoom while you're making your own little recipes, and then you all sit down and you have a virtual dinner together, right? Like there are so many ways that we can do this, but if you are using food to cope with stress, I am never going to tell you that's bad. I am never going to tell you to stop doing that. But what I am going to tell you to do is make sure that you are doing it in a way that is not hurting you, right? We don't want to harm ourselves, but food is a beautiful tool to help with this. And a really important question as well to ask ourselves. I said before, ask yourself, what brings you closer to that love and connection? And at the same hand, or on the other side, I suppose is the proper way, ask yourself, what is bringing me farther away? What things in my life are bringing me farther away from the feelings of love and connection? Or, insert feelings there, whatever is true for you. And that could be something like beating yourself up, right? Being judgmental. Oh my God, I can't stop eating chocolate. What is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? I hate that I do this. This is disgusting. Let me tell you, that is not bringing you any closer to love or connection. So work on that inner critic, right? Work on using curiosity, work on quieting the inner voice, work on being your own best friend. And I have other podcast episodes and other resources available for that if you're interested, right? Another thing is endlessly watching the news. If you it is no secret, people who watch the news more tend to be more anxious, tend to be more stressed out, because it's just sensationalizing. Like by this point in time, we all know what's happening, right? We all know that the coronavirus is out there. We all know that there's a pandemic. We all know that the world is essentially shut down in so many ways. This is not a surprise. Whether you agree with it or not, totally a different thing. But the fact of the matter is, right now, we know what's happening, right? So if you find yourself watching the news and finding that it is making you more stressed, maybe put on a movie, put on a comedy, put on something that's going to make you feel good, help you laugh, or turn the TV off altogether and connect with the other people in your environment. You can also do this with social media. Again, if you find yourself endlessly scrolling on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, and you're just finding that all you're seeing is people's opinions and you're seeing arguments and you're seeing all of this back and forth, or you find that it's like a lot of false positivity. I've been seeing a lot of that on my own feeds lately, a lot of false positivity, right? Feel better, don't worry about it. It's all going to pass. Like ignoring the reality of the situation. So if you find that you're scrolling social media and it's not elevating your mindset, maybe consider getting off. Maybe that is setting boundaries for yourself every day, right? Maybe it's not looking at the phone first thing in the morning, or having an evening free of your phone. Maybe it's giving yourself a social media free day during the week, right? Maybe pick one day where you do not go on social media at all. There's lots of ways to do this, but really ask yourself, what is bringing you further away from those feelings of love and connection that you're seeking, and work on reducing those, right? Because at the end of the day, if you are reaching for food, if you are in lockdown, if you are in a stressful situation and you are reaching for food to manage your stress, food is not the issue. The stress is the issue. So as long as you are working on understanding what is underneath your stress, what you really want to be experiencing instead, and moving towards that, you are in a great place. And please do not demonize food. Food is not your enemy. Food is nutrition. Food is pleasure. Food is connection. Food is community. And we can use it like that in a way that makes our lives better and is absolutely beautiful. As your takeaway from today's episode, I want to challenge you to incorporate one thing that you have heard in this episode. Is there one thing that you are going to add to your life? Is there one thing that you are going to maybe start doing less of in your life to help you deal with the stress of COVID, to help you deal with your emotional eating? I would love to hear. Send me a direct message on either Instagram or Facebook. I am at Katie Allen Coaching on both, and the links to those will be in the show notes, of course. Send me a direct message. What is your one key takeaway? What is your one thing that you are doing after listening to this episode? I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. So much love to you. Show yourself some love. Give yourself grace. You are enough. You are amazing. And I'm really grateful for you. Thank you for being here.